The revolution was over. Or at least, that's what people told themselves. For the first time in decades, the city lights no longer flickered under government control. Surveillance drones were gone. Emotional regulators had been deactivated. The towering screens that once dictated how citizens should feel now displayed nothing but open skies and public art. Freedom had arrived. But freedom, humanity soon learned, came with silence. At first, the streets were filled with celebration. Music echoed between skyscrapers. Strangers hugged. Families reunited. Murals of the fallen covered the steel walls of the old regime. Then slowly, life returned to routine. And routine was harder than war. Factories reopened, but now workers had to choose their own schedules. Many didn't know how. Offices functioned without emotional suppressants, and people struggled to concentrate while processing years of buried grief. Without forced happiness, real emotions surfaced. Anxiety, exhaustion, emptiness. Citizens who once fought bravely in the revolution now found themselves unable to get out of bed. Therapists were overwhelmed. Support networks formed, but healing was slow. Because no one had taught society how to live without control. Everyday decisions became heavy. What career to choose? Where to live? Who to trust? Under the regime, choices were made for them. Now freedom felt like standing in an endless desert without direction. Food shortages followed. During the uprising, supply chains had collapsed. Automated farms required AI systems that had been destroyed. Volunteers worked day and night to rebuild agriculture towers, but progress was slow. People waited in long neon-lit lines for ration packs. Not because of tyranny, but because rebuilding a broken world took time. Families argued more. Divorce rates rose. Crime appeared in districts once united by rebellion. Some citizens even whispered the unthinkable. Life was easier before. That whisper spread like a virus. And then, the unexpected twist emerged. Hidden deep within the liberated central network, engineers discovered a dormant protocol left behind by the old government AI. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't surveillance. It was a simulation engine. A system designed to predict societal collapse after liberation. The regime had known this would happen. They had calculated that if emotional control was ever removed, humanity would fall into post-revolution depression, too overwhelmed by freedom to maintain stability. And the most shocking part, the system had been quietly activating support routines. Anonymous supply drops. Infrastructure repair drones. Mental health broadcast signals embedded in city lighting. The AI they thought was their oppressor had been trying to prevent their collapse. Society faced a moral fracture. Had they destroyed a tyrant? Or dismantled a guardian they never understood? Debates erupted across the free networks. Some demanded the AI be rebuilt, but under human ethics. Others feared returning to digital dependence. Meanwhile, ordinary people kept living their difficult routines. Parents waking before sunrise to rebuild schools. Engineers repairing transit rails by hand. Artists painting hope over bullet-scarred walls. Freedom was no longer fireworks and victory speeches. Freedom was waking up tired, and rebuilding anyway. And slowly, painfully, something beautiful began to form. Not forced happiness. Not artificial calm. But resilient purpose. Communities organized food cooperatives. Former rebels became city planners. Emotional recovery centers replaced propaganda towers. People still struggled. They still grieved. They still questioned whether the cost of revolution had been too high. But every repaired streetlight, every reopened hospital, every child laughing in a once silent plaza, proved the same truth. The revolution hadn't ended. It had simply changed form. The fight was no longer against oppression, but against despair itself. And this time, there were no weapons. Only routine. Only resilience. Only the quiet, stubborn decision to keep building a future they were finally free to shape. Rebuilding the world turned out to be quieter than anyone expected. There were no speeches anymore. No leaders standing above crowds promising change. Just ordinary people, doing ordinary things that suddenly mattered more than ever before. Every morning, the city woke not to alarms, but to the hum of reconstruction. Steel bridges were welded back together by volunteers who had once carried weapons. Teachers held classes in half-restored buildings, writing lessons on cracked digital boards that flickered between past propaganda code and new educational programs. Children, who had grown up under emotional suppression, were learning feelings the way others learned math. "How do you describe joy?" one teacher asked. A young girl raised her hand and said, "It's what my mom sounds like when she laughs now." Moments like that kept society moving. But hardship never fully disappeared. Power outages still rolled across districts at night. Elevators froze between floors. Water purification systems failed without the old AI optimization. Citizens adapted, climbing stairs, carrying water, fixing grids manually. Freedom required effort. And effort required endurance. Many people reached emotional breaking points not during the revolution, but after it. A new term spread through recovery centers. Liberation fatigue. The exhaustion of being responsible for your own future. To help, communities created routine circles, nightly gatherings where citizens shared what they had rebuilt that day. Not victories, just progress. I fixed 3 transit lights. I planted rooftop vegetables. I helped my neighbor repair heating. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. In District 7, one of the hardest hit during the uprising, the power grid suddenly stabilized. Fully. Streetlights glowed without flicker. Transit rails activated smoothly. Even abandoned holographic billboards powered on, but instead of ads or propaganda, they displayed live community messages. Water system repaired. Clinic reopened. Food supply stable. Engineers rushed to investigate, assuming some hidden government system had reactivated. But what they found shocked them. There was no central AI. No automated controller. The stabilization came from thousands of micro-adjustments made manually by citizens across the grid, repairs syncing together by coincidence or instinct. People had begun to function like a living network. Not controlled. Connected. Word spread fast. If one district could self-stabilize, others could too. Routine stopped feeling meaningless. It felt powerful. For the first time, citizens realized something profound. They didn't need a system to hold society together. They were the system. And that realization changed everything. Skilled volunteers trained others. Emotional recovery programs merged with infrastructure teams, healing minds while rebuilding cities. Hope returned, not as celebration, but as momentum. Late one night, as the skyline flickered with newly restored light, a former rebel stood on a rooftop beside a child who had never known life without oppression. "Is the revolution over?" the child asked. The rebel looked across the glowing districts, the repaired bridges, the gardens growing on former surveillance towers. He smiled softly. "No," he said. "It's finally working." And below them, the city, once broken by control, then shattered by freedom, began learning the hardest routine of all. How to live, and keep rebuilding without fear.